is Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement or how to buy consulting services. You'll get tips on how to use consulting, buy consulting, and managing the consulting. And now your host, Ellen Lafitte.
Hello, and welcome back to Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement. And I'm Ellen, and today I'll be talking about our first lever to maximize the impact of your consulting projects. Invest in the right project. But before we dive into today's episode, let me give you guys a short recap about our previous 6-lever episode. I gave a few pointers about what you should know before you start using our 6 levers methodology to create more value through your consulting spend. So business leaders and stakeholders must realize and accept that a procurement transformation will impact the entire organization and that the company as a whole can benefit from what best-in-class procurement for the consulting services can provide. So, however, for any change to occur, procurement must have the support from senior management and key stakeholders. Ironically, they frequently don't care, and their lack of concern reveals the lack of collaboration between the business lines and procurement. So changing your mindset is the first step toward increasing your consulting ROI. So if you want to know more about what you should know before you start transforming your consulting procurement to optimize the return on investment of your consulting spend, you can have a look at our previous episode. And for those who watch on YouTube, I'll drop the link in the description to that video. And make sure to follow us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and any other mainstreaming platform for more content. That's done. Now let's jump onto today's topic. So today, we start explaining everything about a 6-lever methodology of optimizing the ROI of your consulting spend. So I'll walk you through with a detailed analysis of using each lever to create more value from your consulting spend, starting with the first lever, investing in the right projects. So have you ever seen an internal project fail because your employees were too busy with their daily tasks to care about the project really, or were afraid of taking risks that could jeopardize their career? Right? I'm sure you have. So, consultant, whether they are internal or external, actually can help you achieve more value than you would if you led the same project as part of your daily operations. So the right consultant brings focus and avoids common pitfalls. And projects done with support from a good consultant tend to be more successful than those completed internally without outside help. However, not all companies make use of consultants in the most effective way possible. Sometimes they are overly reliant on it, while other times they underestimate the potential. The effective use of consulting relies both on a well-defined strategy and an agile execution to adjust the strategy when needed. In traditional industries such as chemicals or manufacturing, all small to mid-sized companies, executives often underutilize consulting services. They tend to think that consulting is expensive or that consultants do not really create value. And using consulting is seen as a sign of weakness or a waste of money, if not both. However, the opposite can be true if used to its full potential. Consulting can help companies tackle a number of internal and external challenges, such as developing new products, creating operational efficiencies, or finding ways to increase market share. It can also provide crucial insight into customer needs and behavior that are often difficult to uncover internally. So in the other industry, executives have become so reliant on consultants that they can't make a move without their help. A large bank recently noticed that during a budget meeting supported by a consulting firm, all the different functions of the group had prepared the meeting with their own private consultant. So the bottom line is that consulting can be an invaluable resource when used effectively. However, not all projects are good candidates for consulting support. The most common mistake companies make is not anticipating and prioritizing their needs for consultants, which in turn causes them to rely on consultants anytime they need help or want to speed up the process. So the first one to use the budget often gets the resources. Now, it would be great if we had unlimited resources to do all the project we want, right? But in reality, we are all limited by our resources, whether it's time, budget, or skills. And sometimes in order to make the most impactful and budget-friendly decisions, we might be selective about which project we dedicate our resources to. So by investing in the right project, we can see a significant increase in results within a given time frame and budget. And investing in the wrong project can be disastrous for a company, as progress will not only be slow, but risk alienating our customer base too. So that's why I often come across clients having burned their budget in the first 2 quarters of the year, only to find themselves struggling with any strategic project for the remaining 6 months. And it's almost as if their funds were seasonal, like disappearing in a puff of smoke when summer arrives. That's it, it's dry, that's dried up. So investing in the right project from the outset is key to avoiding this scenario and ensuring business continuity throughout the year. With careful planning and some start decision, you can make sure you're getting value for money whilst also investing in worthy initiative. So the benefits of doing outweigh chasing and fleeting trends and whims. So to avoid this scenario, I recommend that you invest time into understanding what projects have the potential to bring you the best returns. So you need to think strategically. You focus on projects that are either supporting the overall strategy, enabling other projects that support the strategy, or projects that have a high impact or return on investment. So how do you do that? So you need to build your consulting strategy. So obviously it starts with a strategy. The strategy, it reflects your vision, and your consulting project should be fully synchronized with that. However, most executives would recognize that besides an ambitious strategy, success cannot happen without the alignment of all the elements of the business. So it means organization and spend to align with the strategy, right? And for the consulting pens, it means spending the right amount of money on the right project and investing strategically in consulting. And that can be a difficult decision, right? And the best way to get the most of your consulting budget is to integrate it early in your strategic planning. As I have mentioned, it's important to align your spending with your overall strategy, right? So you can take that one step further by defining how you want to use consulting in your company, by creating a consulting specific strategy that mirrors your company's missions and goals. So you break your high-level priorities down into clusters, and you decide how many resources you want to dedicate to each one. Now you think about the potential project that you want to launch, and you determine which cluster they would fall under. This will help you prioritize and sequence your projects, manage interdependencies, and make informed decisions about what to outsource or to tackle yourself. So you can tailor the clusters used for this assignment to your organization's needs, right? The key is to ensure you have a versatile plan that will let you select what's best. If you don't know where to start, let me give you what we use at Consulting Quest. So we have 4 clusters. First one is strategic planning. So it's about defining where to play, how to win, and how to allocate your resources. Our second cluster is operational effectiveness. So it's about making sure the operations are effective and efficient. Third cluster, growth and innovation, defining the opportunities to grow beyond the core. And finally, fourth cluster is enablers and governance projects. These are all the enabler projects for all the other clusters, including change management. So while you're creating your consulting strategy, it's best done as a team. And if you've done a lot of consulting, you should think about assigning a small group to handle the process and make sure the strategy gets executed. Don't be afraid to mix up roles between teams like procurement strategy and various business lines. The goal of this group is not to make decisions for the business lines, but rather to allow them keep control over consulting spending while still getting the most value from it. And to do so, you have to put in place best practices. Now, after you've determined your consulting strategy, your next step is to set up a budget. So a good budget will include both strategic initiatives that are needed to move the project forward and non-strategic, but also high ROI projects that can bring meaningful returns, even if they aren't essential for completing the project or your strategy overall. Okay, all this sounds good in the words, but let me give you guys a practical example of what I want to convey through this. Let's imagine, for instance, that you're a manufacturing company that's caught in the crossfire of COVID and the impact of the war in Ukraine, and you're struggling to come up with a sound strategy despite having limited resources. And you know that you have some issues in your production and supply chain activities that need improvement. Okay? So investing in project wisely now means that you can better position yourself for an eventual turnaround without wrecking your finances right now. This, to use a cliched but fitting phrase, is a classic case of measuring twice and cutting once, right? Investing in the right projects today can potentially save you time, money, and energy down the line by propelling you towards the growth and stability that comes with sound strategy. So, you start with an operational project to fix your production and supply chain that give you some short-term savings and long-term efficiencies. With that, you launch a small project on leadership team effectiveness. You now have some budget left. And a leadership team aligned. So now you can launch a strategy project. See, first project is high ROI project, second is an enabler, and the third one is a strategic project. So once you have a plan and a budget in place, now it's time to apply demand management guidelines. So demand management, it's a supply chain system that balances strategically demand with operating capability across the supply chain. The challenge of it often lies in its successful implementation for companies that are not well prepared and fail to deliver the expected result. So in a limited budget scenario, your teams must be able to distinguish between the must-have and the good-to-have projects. And demand management enables your team to make that distinction. So it's a basic but indispensable tool for all organizations, which can help them better manage their spending for indirect procurement, such as consulting. So operations that wish to use demand management must set specific criteria for buying consulting services, prioritize projects based on how important they are to your organization strategy, and carefully consider all possible options when choosing to buy from a supplier. And finally, demand management should be an ongoing process that enables your organization to utilize your budget more judiciously, have tighter control about spending, and reduce pressure on OPEX. So, however, by stipulating thresholds and the involvement of top management in decision-making, demand management may make the process more rigid, which may not be liked by executives accustomed to a more flexible system. In other words, you're making their life more difficult. So you need to take the time to set up a comprehensive system of demand management that helps you save money and resources in the long run. It requires dedication and commitment from all stakeholders, but it's definitely worth it. So to conclude to this topic, the objective was that the client should consider consulting wisely. Companies often underutilize consulting, thinking that they are expensive or that they do not really create value, or they overutilize them, working with consultants at every turn, or even worse, they work on the wrong project. So if you consider consulting as an investment rather than a necessary spend or a necessary evil for some of you, you will select how to spend it early on. Investing in consulting can be a difficult decision. One way to get more from a budget is to integrate it early in strategic planning. Aligning spending with overall strategy and creating a consulting specific strategy can help companies make better use of their resources. And that means defining clusters of high-level priorities that help organization prioritize and sequence projects, manage interdependencies, and make decisions about what to outsource or tackle themselves. Then it's important for teams to be able to discern between projects that are must-have and those that would simply be nice to have. This is where management becomes a useful tool. By overseeing organization spending, it helps prevent overuse of funds on indirect procurement, such as consulting fees. In this way, you can make the most out of your limited budget. While demand management enables organizations to use their budget more efficiently, have better spending, control and lower pressure on operational expenses, it may also make the process more inflexible by demanding certain thresholds and executive involvement in decisions. So be sure to make it flexible enough to avoid frustration. Take the time to set up a comprehensive system of demand management because it's really worth it. So I hope that you're now familiar with what investing in the right project means. And you can just come and ask us at Consulting Quest if you want to know more. So thanks for listening. That's marked the end of our podcast. So keep an eye out for me when I return with our next lever. Till then, stay safe and happy sourcing. And if you have other questions regarding today's topic, remember you can always contact me directly on LinkedIn or by email because I'm always game for a chat. Bye and see you next week. Au revoir.
You've been listening to Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit the website at consultingquest.com. Find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. For questions and comments, send an email to ellen.lafitte@consultingquest.com. See you next time.